so long is like alchemy.
All right, here we go, man. This was an explosive deadline. The Cleveland Cavaliers, LeBron James, Dan Gilbert, who was pulling the strings. Probably, I don't know, man. That's going to be a lot of speculation on the decision-making and what Cleveland did today. But, hey, someone like me, the fans, the media, this is fun, right? This was fun. So let's take a look at Cleveland. Let's talk about Jordan Clarkson, because I think he may be the most significant player that they acquired. And you're moving Dwayne Wade out, which is addition from subtraction. You know, they talk about how close Wade and LeBron were, and they were isolating themselves from the rest of the locker room. Wade was in his ear on some different shit. They told him kick rocks. And that'll be fun to see how that plays out. You know, need to do a spoof on him walking in the door and talking to Riley and them. But anyway, I'm getting off subject. So Jordan Clarkson comes in, Derrick Rose is out, Wade is out. And so now you're starting to define the pecking order. And obviously LeBron is the king of the team, but everybody else's roles were undefined. And that was one of the problems, I think, with the team. Everybody thought that they were this spot and that spot. So now Jordan Clarkson, who's a ball dominant guard, is clearly the third guard and the lead scorer off the bench with the second unit. He's not that efficient, but the thing I like about Clarkson is his competitive edge and his effort will be there. So I like that move for them, but I don't think you can play him that much with LeBron. He's, like I said, defined role as the third guard, because he's not someone that comes off screens and catches and shoots, and he kind of needs the ball in his hands. Now, Rodney Hood is kind of that mold, right? But he's a bigger, more versatile defender, and I like this move for them as well. And this, I guess you can just call it all one big move. But Rodney Hood, I think, may struggle. If you look at all the pieces that they brought in, he's the one guy where it kind of, I guess he's going to take maybe that Jay Crowder role, but he's not as much as a catch and shoot shooter. He likes to dribble it a little more than I think that they would like within that system. So he may have to have the most adjustment to his game, but I'm not saying it won't work. The thing with Rodney Hood is he's kind of like Jeff Green in the sense of one game you turn on a game and he's like a fringe all-star. You're like, damn, Rodney Hood's a beast, right? And then a week, 10 days will go by and you kind of forget he's there. So he's inconsistent with his play, just like Jeff Green, and that could be a problem. Larry Nance Jr. is a nice player, and he's a switchable defender. That's his greatest strength. He's a good, smart defender, but he's not going to stretch the floor or score anything outside of a dunk. Now you're going to see some posters. He's going to show just like his dad in Cleveland. LeBron's going to enjoy throwing some poster lobs for Nance Jr. But one thing that you have to understand with him is you can't play him and Tristan Thompson at the same time, because then you're taking all the spacing off the floor. Tristan is the superior rebounder and probably stronger in the paint. He's very physical. But what Nance does better is he switches and he's able to defend on the perimeter better. He's a little smaller, lighter. He's more agile and athletic. So that's good that they have that option depending on who they're playing. If it's a more perimeter-oriented team, you go with Nance Jr. If there's a big man in the paint, you go with Tristan Thompson. So it's giving them options. George Hill, this was a rumor deal for, I don't know, like a month, and it finally happened as well. Obviously, they sent out Shumpert. They sent out half the roster. I'm not even going to cover that. Y'all look at the details on that. But George Hill, I've heard a lot of whispers of, oh, he's not what he used to be. Remember, he had plantar fasciitis? He's had a lot of injuries, and his defensive rating has sunk into the bottom of the league this year in Sacramento, sharing time with De'Aaron Fox and their other young guards. But I really think that it's not that he's spent and he's burnt. I think it was the environment. I think it's very hard to get up and play hard as a veteran in Sacramento. Z-Bo is cut from a different cloth, right? He's going to go hard 100 if he's on a blacktop, right? But George Hill, I think the change of scenery will really do him some good, and you're going to see a better George Hill in Cleveland than you saw in Sacramento. But he is limited. He's a spot-up three-point shooter. He can run in the system, but he's not going to be a guy that LeBron can throw the ball to and say, hey, make something happen. I need to rest. So you're not getting that. From the Lakers' perspective, they've cleared cap, ironically, by sending the cap that money to Cleveland for LeBron. But what else they did, I think, in a sneaky way was they got themselves a tank commander. Isaiah Thomas, man, his agent is already tweeting out Isaiah will not come off the bench. Lonzo Ball is hurt right now, so that's fine. I'm sure he will start. but he needs to shut up and play his part. He's been exiled from 2 teams in less than a year. He hasn't shown that he can stay healthy, and he continues to make commands and make statements as if he's the man. Ain't nobody backing up that Brinks truck, Isaiah. But what he will do is if they want to play him heavy minutes, he will ensure that the Lakers finish with the top 5 pick this season. Because we've seen it year in and year out with these young teams. They're in Sam Hinkie mode, they're in the process mode, and then towards the end of the year, they start winning games. And so Isaiah may ensure that they don't do that. You roll him out for 35 minutes a night, you're going to take a lot of L's, Laker fans, as you should want to probably at this point. So I like the move for both of those teams. Now, the biggest winner of the trade deadline to me is the Detroit Pistons. And you say, okay, Blake Griffin, that's kind of obvious, and it was a risk. Obviously, they haven't lost a game yet. Him and Drummond seem to have amazing chemistry, and they're filling seats now. So that was, that's a risk they were willing to take. Everybody understood why they would take that risk, being it is the Detroit Pistons. But the two small moves that they made today, I think really put them over the top and make them dangerous. Not a contender, but dangerous. So they went and they got Jameer Nelson. You say, Jameer Nelson out? Jameer Nelson still in the league, that little fire hydrant? So, yeah, he's still in the league, man, and he's still a floor general because someone that size to play in the NBA for this long has so many intangibles and so many nuances to their game in order to stay in the league that you don't really appreciate their skill level. So Jameer's still in the league, and mind you, he led an Orlando Magic team with Stan Van Gundy to the NBA Finals. Right now, that was Dwight Howard's team, Rashard Lewis, right? But he was the point guard of that team, and he understands the system, and he understands how to get the ball to a big like a Dwight Howard or an Andre Drummond. So they go get this floor leader, a guy with finals experience, playoff experience, a general. And then they go get James Ennis from the Memphis Grizzlies. And I don't know why Memphis gave him up. Memphis is really what their decision-making is suspect, starting with the Fizdale firing. But they go get James Ennis. Now, he's a 3-4 banger, very physical, a lot of effort. And so I'm like, dang, I liked him. I really like him as a player. And I'm looking up and down Detroit's roster, and I say to myself, my God, this is the most physical team in the league, the most physically imposing team in the league, and it's not even close. Andre Drummond, Blake Griffin, James Ennis, Reggie Jackson when he comes back, Stanley Johnson, all these dudes are just built like trucks. And they have, more importantly, the DNA of what Stan Van Gundy is looking for to build around this team. So again, they're not contenders. I'm not saying they're going to come out of the East, but there's teams, if you're Boston and you're Toronto and you're Cleveland, there's teams that you want to avoid in the bracketing because it's going to be such a physical series. And it's always Miami, right? That's how they're built. And now Detroit is a team you want to avoid. Not that they're going to beat you, but they're going to sap your legs. You're going to get chipped up. Kevin Love will go down. Kyrie, you want to avoid them. And so I think that they clearly won the trade deadline. Now, the losers, was there really losers? I'm not judging Sacramento. They're 365 days a year losers as far as until they figure out what they want to do. It's just a mix. And I know I took some shots at Sac in that video with the Warriors, but hey, they started it with the Golden Girls shit. So it is what it is. Sac's a mess. We talked about the Lakers. Utah, I believe they're going to waive Derrick Rose. Okay, so Utah, who else did they acquire? So they got Jay Crowder, and he showed some signs of life. Again, a change of scenery will really help. Crowder, who's more of a system player, all of a sudden finds himself in a system with Quinn Snyder, one of the best coaches in the league. So Crowder, I think Utah did just fine because they didn't really give anything up. Hood was in and out. I think they're just fine, right? But talking about Derrick Rose, who's going to be bought out. You talk about Joe Johnson, who's going to be bought out. And that's where all the contenders are starting to lick their chops and pull their chair up to the table. They've been waiting for the buyout market. Boston, Houston, and Golden State, San Antonio, right? All these teams, and that's where there's going to be the fighting for that. And Warrior fans, you say, well, who is it? I think Joe Johnson is priority number one. But I think what's going to determine where he goes is Golden State willing to promise him 15 to 20 minutes a night, which essentially is Patrick McCaw's minutes. Is Bob Myers and Steve Kerr willing to say, hey, ISO Joe, 15 to 20 a night, come get yourself a ring? Or are they going to tell him, like they told a Dwayne Wade in the offseason and other agents, free agent vets they've tried to attract, like, hey, man, we have a roster spot for you, but your playing time will have to be earned. That may turn off Joe Johnson, and he may go somewhere where he's promised time. Derrick Rose, Golden State, obviously I don't think has any interest in it, but you never know. I've heard that he's going to go reunite with Thibodeau in Minnesota, but they've got to free up a roster spot, and a disgruntled Shabazz Muhammad, I think, may be plan B for Golden State. Now, he's not a guard. He's a 3-4 tweener, but he's a bucket getter, an energy bucket getter, and that could be plan B on the buyout market for Golden State. Were there really losers? I don't think, because there was no blockbuster trades, I don't think there were a lot of losers. I don't understand what Memphis was doing, giving up a player like that on a favorable contract. Orlando selling low on Elfrid Payton. To the Sun, that he's too young to give up on. You know what, that signals to me that there may be some attitude problems with Elfrid Payton if they were willing to just ship him out like that. And I know it's a second-round pick, but a Sun second-round pick is really kind of like a late first-round pick, you feel me? But I would say the losers would be Oklahoma City and San Antonio not being able to get Avery Bradley or a Tyreek Evans. And why I don't put Boston and Golden State in that category is because I don't think they needed it as much. When Roberson went down for OKC, now there's kind of a void there. And so you expected them to pick up a wing player. And so I kind of put them in the losers category. And then San Antonio, you heard them attached to trying to acquire a bunch of people because I think they know internally they don't have enough this year and they weren't able to get anybody. But again, the buyout market is open. And the positive for Warrior fans, I think, was, again, Rodney Hood going east, I should say, and the other potential contenders in the West haven't added anybody. They weren't able to make a move yet. Where the buyout pieces fall is going to really determine the true winners and losers of the contenders, at least in the Western Conference. Y'all want some exclusive content? Check out my Patreon. Hit that like, share, and subscribe. I'm out, y'all.